Hello and welcome to the Portfolio Pulse podcast, the podcast for medical professionals and entrepreneurs aimed at reaching those interested in healthcare, education around all things finance, and business ownership. Entrepreneurs come in all shapes and sizes, and as business owners, we've learned a lot through mistakes, struggles, and success. And this podcast is for those that want to learn and what they could be doing to be better in medicine and or business. We addressed 11 financial planning myths and debunked them a few episodes ago with the incredulous and unrivaled Ben Decker from Consolidated Planning. And we've got him back on the show today to dispel 11 more myths or misinformation pieces that are out there. Again, the myths that we're hearing are spread rapidly through either social media, Uncle Ted, on the farm, or, around the water cooler at work. So how do we know who to believe and what to believe? And this could also, take precedence in politics as well. But we're going to talk about finance today and not talk about politics.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So Ben, welcome back to the show, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stephen. Happy to be here today.
So this is going to stay conversational. I mean, I want it to be intriguing for our listeners, but again, if it seems scripted, it's just not going to work out. So Ben, we had some good reception to our last 11 myths that we debunked. And I do want to run through those real quickly, just so if you're interested in hearing one of these 11, go back to episode, I think it was 32, something like that. But the first myth we covered was my 401k is all I need for retirement planning. Number 2 is I'll be in a lower tax bracket when I retire, covered federal tax rates there. Financial advisors just invest my money. There is no other value, which we know is not true now. 4, I can do all my financial planning myself. 5, market returns are more important than saving money. 6, debt reduction should take precedence over anything else you're doing financially. 7, my budget is my financial plan. And we all hate to budget, so who likes to plan if that's the case? Number 8, tax-deferred investments are better than taxable investments while you're in accumulation. Number 9, buy term and invest the difference is better than permanent protection. We'll go into that a little bit today. 10, my group benefits are all the insurance that my family and I need. And then 11, a 15-year mortgage is better than a 30-year mortgage. A lot of those answers are, it depends, but if you're using blanket advice in any realm, it's probably not going to be best for you. Just consider some alternatives. So let's go into our first of 11 financial planning myths that we're going to debunk today. Number 1 is I don't qualify to use a financial planner. I've heard this a lot. So why do people think they do not qualify for a financial planner, and who does qualify for a financial planner?
Yeah, that's a really good one, Stephen. I think a lot of people feel that way. Just my experience in the marketplace has been that I work with a lot of younger folks, especially when I started in the business, and a lot of people think you need $1 million to get some good financial advice, and that's just not true. And I think the people that need the most help sometimes don't have $1 million. They're on their way to earning $1 million or making $1 million. So I think the spotlight has shifted from the old traditional view of financial planning that, hey, I'm going to go visit some gray-haired person in an office and have $1 million to do that, to I just need some financial advice. I need to get organized. I need to know how to handle my debt. I need to know how to handle my budget. I need to know how to accumulate wealth and handle some of those myths that we debunked before, right? And I think there's plenty of opportunity there for folks that, the qualifying for a financial advisor doesn't mean you need to have $1 million.
True. I mean, you don't have to have much money at all. I mean, the financial investment advisor is going to want you to have a minimum to work with them, such as, I think the basic one is $150,000 or $250,000 because that's how they earn their money. There's also, we talked about fee only and fee based advisors where they can charge for advice. And so they charge for the plan, and they can cover a whole multitude of conversations with you around debt, protection, asset building, cash flow, savings, all those things that regular Joes like me and you, Ben, we need help with. So if you're looking to save more money or reduce the amount of debt you have, or just be better about spending what you have coming in, then yeah, I mean, everybody should have some type of advice, whether it's from a paid financial advisor or from someone that you trust, go out and make sure that they fit with what you're looking for. So moving on to the next one, financial advisors and planners are too expensive.
Ouch.
Kind of fits in with that last one a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's also just sort of an assumption that people have. One, they don't feel like they qualify. And I think too expensive really is just, I think what people really want to know is, am I getting a fair shake, right? Is my money that I'm spending on a financial advisor, is it worth it? Right? Am I getting ripped off, or am I actually getting some value out of this? So that's where it really comes into like finding a really good match, somebody that's out for your best interest, somebody that has a wealth of knowledge. They have a firm behind them. They're not just, a solo practitioner. They have a team of advisors that they work with. But from our end, Stephen, like we can easily justify any sort of expense associated with working with us, and it's got to be, uh, you know, it's got to be in their best interest, right? So they got to win more than we win, right? When we work with somebody. So I think as long as it's justified, too expensive is kind of a myth, right? It's like too expensive for what? You're actually going to come out better, right? You're going to have more wealth. You're going to save more money. You're going to be properly protected. You're going to be financially organized, and all that, to me, is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, with anything that's actually worth your time or worth your energy or your effort, you have to make an investment. And so,
Yeah.
I do understand that there's hesitancy with all the marketing that's around financial advising and things like that. Is like, okay, well, why are the fees so hidden? What is it that you guys charge? I think being more open and transparent with how we get paid is going to make it so that more and more people will come to the financial advisors and say, okay, your fee is worth it. Like, I feel like I know what
Right.
it's going to do and what you're going to do for me. So I can justify paying this couple $1,000 fee to work with you for a year and get my stuff in order.
Right. Right. And fees are different across the board, right? Because
Sure.
there's different ways that advisors can charge fees. And I think people just want to know, am I getting a fair shake? I don't think they're against financial planners getting paid. I think they're against not knowing, like you pointed out, but also, is it worth it? And I think a good advisor is going to show you, right? Be able to show you that any fee that you pay is going to be worth it.
If I could find a way to be more transparent online with my fees, I would. I just think that there's too much convolution around that from a
Yeah.
compliance standpoint.
Yeah. The C word.
The
Yeah.
C word, yeah. All right, that's good. Let's move on to number 3. I
Great.
hear this one a lot, especially when people ask me questions. Like, I had this one guy message me on Snapchat and ask me about my fees. Like, this is an odd medium on which to do that. But so I
You
can
can
use,
email me.
yeah, you can email me or call me or talk to me in person. Um,
Yeah.
I can use a robo-advisor like Vanguard or Schwab and do well enough.
Yeah. So the race to zero has been won, right? With when it comes to investment fees. And that's what people really look for in a robo advisor. It's not that I want a robot to do my investing. It's that I don't want to pay too much for my investments. And so this robo advisor came around, and there's nothing wrong with it per se, other than it doesn't address human behavior. So, Stephen, you know this, right? When COVID hit, what happened? Everybody was scared, right? All our investing clients were scared to death. They didn't know. They thought the world was ending. They wanted to run for the hills. And with that, a lot of people wanted to leave their, 80-20 portfolio and bring it down to a, all cash, right? In drastic situations. So, and you would have lost a lot of money if you did that. You wouldn't have bounced back. So there's a human behavior element, and we're just horrible at it, right? Humans are horrible at investing, right? Because we can't stomach the ups and downs of the market. So robo advisors are great in that the fees are low, and that's why we want them. But if you can get fees low, but also have a coach next to you that's saying, hey, calm down, things are going to be okay. Let's ride out the storm. And so we don't lose all our wealth. Well, that's worth it, right? That's back to that whole fee conversation.
Yeah, and investments are, if that's all you want is like someone to help offer guidance or some more strategic planning around and investments only, then maybe the robo advisor is for you. But if you're looking for more of a comprehensive approach where we know your entire portfolio and your assets and your balance sheet, and we also know the goals that you have and the family ties and all those things that are the
Yeah.
extraneous factors for this, robo advisor is not going to know that because they use algorithms to help you. But if you want a better experience overall, having the advisor there with the cheap, commissions and
Yeah.
stuff like that on that would help.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm all about low fees as long as they're justifiable. But yeah, a robot's a robot, right? You get on the roller coaster, you got to hang out. You got to go through the ups and downs. There's no way that you can adjust the portfolio. There's no comprehensive planning involved. So there's some pitfalls to that too. You get what you pay for.
I think the emotional behavior you mentioned is probably the biggest one, because the robo-advisor is not going to say, hey, I see you're making this trade right now on all your accounts. What's going on? Do you want to talk it out? Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. There's actually a study out there, the Dalbar study, that every year investors lose because of human behavior. It's proven statistically, factually, it's written down on paper that you're going to have a worse experience in the market if you have a human behind it. Right. So when when you rely on a robot, good luck.
Right. Moving on. Number 4, I don't need to be concerned with taxes until I'm closer to retirement.
Ooh, taxes.
Oof.
So taxes, I think, well, it depends on if we're talking to business owners. I think business owners are always worried about taxes.
Always. It's like number 1 on their list.
Yeah, I'd probably get an amen on that one. But I think a lot of people with taxes sort of put their head in the sand, right? Like, I'll give you a good example, Stephen, and you know this, is that when somebody arrives at retirement's doorstep with a lot of qualified money, that would be 401k, 403b kind of accounts, boy, taxes become a big deal because every dollar out of that account is going to be taxable. And at that point in their life, their deductions have gone away or vanished, right? They don't have mortgage interest. They don't have children in the house anymore. They don't have 401k contributions anymore. So it becomes a really big tax burden in those retirement years. So if you stick your head in the sand and you throw all your money into one type of account, it can be really dangerous. There's a lot of legislative risk around that. So I think a good idea is to diversify your accounts so that they're taxed differently. Nobody likes paying them. It's a matter of when you're going to pay them and what's the most efficient way to do that so it doesn't erode all your wealth.
So you're here to tell me that I'm not going to be in a lower tax bracket in retirement than I am now?
Yeah, I don't know who said that. Who said that? Do you know?
Everybody says that, man.
I think the people that retired in 1978 said that, probably.
Yeah.
And they were right. So you raise a good point. The average tax across the board since the beginning of income taxes is around 60%. The highest ever is 94%. And today we're in a 37%. So we're in a really good environment right now. The question is, could we be deferring to a higher tax bracket in the future? And nobody has any control over that. In this current political climate, everybody's scared of what taxes are going to do. And I don't think it's because they're going to go down, right? Everybody's scared of them going up.
Right. So, one of the conversations I have around taxes with either prospects or clients is, hey, we want to have a lot of tax deferred income now so that your taxable income decreases and taxes are saved now. But we know the environment that we're in. And I asked a simple question, like, based on the environment we're in now, where do you anticipate tax rates to be 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future? And they say, I don't know, but I think it's going up. Right. So if you anticipate it's going to be going up, and we're already in a pretty low tax environment right now, wouldn't you want to pay the tax in the environment in which you are in a controlled state, which is at 37% is the highest you're going to pay?
Mm-hmm.
So why not worry about taxes now, still have the growth on a taxable and tax deferred basis and mix it. And then when you get to retirement, you'll have a much more enjoyable relationship with those taxes.
Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to our CPA friends out there too. Like it's good to have a team of advisors. One thing I know you do a great job of, and I do too, is that we don't pretend to be the smartest people at the table. Like there are other very smart advisors in your world, and a good CPA in coordination with a good financial advisor is going to find the best route for you. So you're going to pay some tax now, pay some tax later, sort of a combination strategy, but having good advisors in your corner is going to be the best for you.
And if you can make it so where you have the power of zero, which is a good book, by the way, the power of zero, you can have zero income tax paid in retirement if you set it up properly.
You should put that in the show notes.
I will. Moving on to the next, number 5, I can plan by buying term insurance and investing the difference. We covered this lightly in our first debunking episode, but just a little bit more on that is we hear about buy term and invest the difference. Like, what is that? And why doesn't it work?
Yeah. So this is an old argument. It's been around for a long time. And so we're bringing up life insurance, right? The dreaded life insurance. And so when you say by term, that's what we're talking about. So I think a lot of people need to know what that is. So you're renting life insurance basically for a period of time. Let's use the example of 20 years.
Mhm.
And it's very costly to do that for those 20 years. But statistically, you're not going to pass away in those 20 years unless there's like some sort of James Dean ending. Like you're going to outlive that 20 years. And insurance companies know that. They're well aware that you're not going to die in that 20-year period. In fact, I think there's a study out there. I think it's LIMRA has said
It
that
is.
term insurance only pays out roughly 2% of the time. So there's a 98% chance that the insurance company is just going to collect term insurance premiums. Okay, so pause right there, Stephen. Does that make term bad?
No, it doesn't make term bad. It's kind of like the old aside we always talk about of, if I've got to go fix my deck outside and I've got a bunch of nails sticking up, but the only tool I have right now in my hand is a screwdriver. That doesn't make the screwdriver a bad tool. It just means for this particular job that I'm discussing right now with you, it might not be the best fit. So let's go back to my tool bag or my toolbox and find the tool that does best fit that, which would be the hammer. So in this case, the screwdriver might be the term insurance, but the hammer could be what I actually need for this job, which could be any other tool that we have in
True.
our
True.
financial bag.
Yeah, and I know my clients have a ton of term insurance, and I have a ton of term
I have
insurance.
some too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't make term bad, but when you look at the long-term economics of it, it it doesn't have a good ending, right? It only pays out. The only incentive is if you pass away.
And you don't get to enjoy that.
Right. Right. But it doesn't make it bad, right? So we need to have some term insurance, but we know that it's going to be a cost over those years.
Let's
And
use an
investing,
example.
go ahead.
Let's use an example of that real quick. So let's just say you have a couple $1,000,000 of life insurance and you bought it at age 40, right? And you bought a
Okay.
20-year policy, you're paying $2,500 a year for that. If you do the math over 20 years, that's $50,000 that you've spent on term insurance, hoping you'll never have to use it, right? And
Yeah, well,
then if
technically, Stephen, it's 50,000 plus the money that you lost on that, right?
that's
That could
which
have
is
been
yep, which is called opportunity cost.
right.
And so if you took that money and you invested that term insurance money or put it somewhere, let's say at a 4 or 5% clip, I mean, you could be at $100,000 or more at that point.
Yeah, so it's really costly.
So if we're using our cash to its highest and best use, what would you position for those? Not on a blanket advice type of analysis here, but investing the difference for people means finding out what a permanent policy costs, taking that amount of money, subtracting the amount of money you're going to put towards term insurance, and invest that amount of money. Number one, you got to
Yeah,
be
like
willing to save.
yeah, like I just don't think the price of permanent insurance should be your planning tool, right? Investing the difference, really should invest what you save, right? And have a savings rate, right? You shouldn't base it off of how much a whole life policy might cost, right? You should actually have a savings rate and a budget. So, but buying term, I just know it doesn't have a good ending. It costs a lot of money, and then the death benefit leaves. And a lot of people think, well, gosh, Stephen, I don't need $1 million of death benefit at retirement. And we work with a lot of retirees, and we know the presence of life insurance in retirement, specifically permanent life insurance, makes retirement better. It just does for a lot of different reasons. One is that, well, if you die too soon, you can refill the coffers. You can enjoy your other non-related retirement assets. You can spend those and enjoy them because the coffers are going to be refilled upon your death. It's a good feeling, right? To know that you can spend your retirement money with a net underneath you that's going to refill everything upon your death. And if you don't need the life insurance, maybe you get sick along the way, you can repurpose that life insurance to pay for the cost of care, which, Stephen, a lot of retirees I think that's one of our myths actually coming up. A lot of retirees are really concerned about the cost of care. Well, let's just repurpose the death benefit. So there's a lot of living benefits to permanent life insurance. It's not just death only. So we know this. We know that the presence of permanent life insurance makes retirement better every time, all the time. So it doesn't make term bad. It's just term's not suited for that job.
There's a lot of retirement experts, such as Wade Fowl, who's renowned in our industry, and he says, the presence of life insurance in conjunction with the assets you have on your balance sheet, spending those down over time will reduce your taxes, and it will give you more income over time to help combat inflation. And then also you have that legacy still intact. So just like you mentioned, I mean, it's a lot more enjoyable of a retirement, which is ultimately what we're trying to help our clients with.
Yeah. And plus there's that human behavior issue, Stephen, right? You got to invest the difference
You have
every
to
time, all the time.
every year for 30 years.
Yeah.
So that was a good long explanation on that one. I hope people got something out of that. But
Oh yeah,
let's go to number let's
that
go to
can be a
number
long
6.
one.
Yeah. Advisors are only looking for those to help that are retiring soon. So advisors are only for those looking to retire soon.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So you don't need an advisor until you're ready to retire. Is basically what it says.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, I think we kind of talked about this one already, right? Like retirement is one of many things going on. We have clients that need to prepare for their kids' college, right? We have clients that need their legal documents all set up and properly organized. We have clients that need to just budget, right? And figure out how much cash flow is coming in and where's it landing on their balance sheet and where are they spending it. So retirement's one thing. There's so many other things we're concerned with. And so I just think that's an easy debunk right there.
Agreed. I mean, you need a guide for every piece of life. Like, you don't need
Yeah.
someone to just help you get down the mountain, which is part of retirement, hit that summit and you're ready to, call it quits at work, but call it, a new day in lifestyle when it comes to retirement. You need someone to help guide you up the mountain and have someone help you down the mountain as well. Doesn't mean you can't do it on your own, but having that extra set of eyes will make you
Oh
better. It
yeah.
will help you make better educated decisions confidently.
And we get a lot of phone calls that like they're one-off phone calls, right, Stephen? Like, hey, I just started, a job with a new company and I got all these benefits. Like, which one should I take? I have clients calling me. I'm not a mortgage broker, right? But I get clients calling me all the time, like, hey, here's what the mortgage broker said to me. What do you think? Right. So
All
we
the
get a
time.
lot of these one-off questions that have nothing to do with retirement at all. Right. So I think an advisor, a trusted advisor, is somebody good to have pre-retirement. Plus, you got to get ready for retirement, right? Like that alone is another thing an advisor can help you do, making sure that you're properly set up for an optimal retirement.
I did have an experience with someone who was probably 5 to 10 years away from retirement and wanted some advice around. I guess they wanted a second set of advice, saying like, am I doing everything correctly? Right. I started
Right.
giving him some advice that contradicted his expected beliefs, and he didn't take too kindly to the advice. So we didn't actually end up going further. But you have to have an open mind when you have these conversations, because a lot of predetermined or predisposed things in your mind might hinder your ability to be a better individual financially. So take advice, heed it. If it makes sense and your philosophy lines up with that person, I think you'll have a better experience overall.
I think, isn't there like some sort of like old saying where if everybody agrees, like somebody's not needed in the room? I think it's okay if your advisor disagrees with you. That's probably a good thing. Good
you don't
indication that they're
you
thinking
don't you
different.
don't want a yes man. You want someone who's going to make you have thoughtful conversations.
That's right. That's right.
So the next one I hear a lot actually is, I need to buy this house first, or I need to get my kid through college, or I need my mother-in-law to die off first. So whatever it is, yeah, I should wait for blank life event before speaking with you or speaking with an advisor.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's that's basically just a procrastination thing. I think everybody could use a financial advisor despite a life event. And the other part is unpredictability, right? Like it's crazy out there. Like I have clients where we create like a huge goal sheet, right? And we'll get together in less than a year and they're moving into a new home. So like things happen and life moves fast. And sometimes we don't know what's around the corner. So if you wait because for a certain life event to get involved with an advisor, it could be too late at that point. You could be cleaning up a big mess.
That is a reactionary response. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a proactive one. So I appreciate the fact that people come to me on a proactive basis and say, I've been thinking about this for a while. I would really like to talk with you. Here's some things that I want to do. Can you help me? Like those are my favorite conversations to have because it is a blank
Yeah.
slate. But when you
Yes.
have all these issues and you're coming to somebody and say, hey, here's my pile of stuff, fix it. That's a lot harder to do.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta, it's kind of like backing out of the mud. And I'm an imperfect human being too, Stephen. I don't know about you, but I understand this type of stuff. Like I get it. And I think a lot of times if people just take that one step and get an opportunity to just meet with somebody like you or me and go, hey, what are you all about? Like, what is it like to work with you? I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, and that is going to build momentum, right? One meeting out of the way, you get to know somebody, you get to know what they're all about. Then you can start to move forward. I think it's like it's a fear of the unknown. Like I'll wait to this life event for me to involve an advisor. It's because I don't know what working with an advisor looks like, and I really need some sort of major situation before I actually work with one. I just think that's just a fear that people have. So
They also want to make sure that their fee they're paying is worth it because they're working towards a particular goal. And once that
sure.
particular goal happens, then they're like, okay, I can justify this. Also, if you have a particular life event you're waiting on, the advisor could probably help you get there quicker based on
Yeah.
what the
Good
decisions you
point.
guys make.
Good point. I've had a lot of cases where we've had to some major, really, really expensive moves that can't be undone because it's been too late, right? We could have really helped out, but it was too late at that point.
Yep. So get on it. If that's a resolution of yours, get on it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Have a
Number
cup of
8,
coffee, right, with Stephen Husky. That's not going to hurt you.
a coffee is inexpensive and it's a great use of time.
Yeah.
Number 8, I'll spend less and pay fewer taxes in retirement. So at that time, I won't need as much income. Let me give an example of this, just so everybody's on the same page. I have a client who's making $300,000 right now, right? And then when they retire, based on their, based on their accumulated amount of assets, they're going to have about $50,000 to $60,000 of income for the rest of their life every year.
Okay.
And I tell them that's going to be a huge, drastic shock to your lifestyle. And they say, oh, I won't have as many expenses. I'll have the mortgage paid off. I'll have all this stuff that I won't be doing anymore. Why is that in someone's mind? And number two, is that actual reality for people?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. Like again, it's sort of like trying to convince yourself that everything's okay. And people don't do that. We're sort of like Michael J. Fox. We've gone back to the future and we know how the story ends, right?
As long
We
as I get a
work
hoverboard out of it, I'm fine with that.
we work with these people, right? We see them, they retire and they don't fall off a spending cliff, right? They don't do it. So if you're spending $300,000 a year and then you have the retirement party, the next day you don't go down to 50. It just doesn't work that way. People don't do that. So yeah, I could argue that you won't spend as much in retirement. You don't have to save as much. Maybe your mortgage is going away, whatnot. But something that drastic from 300 to 50, that's just denial in my book. So the question was, why do people get in this situation? Was that your question?
Why do they think that? And is it actually a reality?
Yeah, well, spending less in retirement will be a reality if you don't have the assets to produce the income.
You're forced to at that point, or you have to
Yeah.
adapt.
Yeah, so spend less is not a strategy, but it becomes the strategy for most people. It's because they're scared of a lot of different things, Stephen, right? They don't know how long they're going to live. They don't know what healthcare costs are going to be. They have no idea what taxes are going to be at that time. They don't have many tax deductions at that time. There's so many headwinds. The market, like what is the market going to do? Sequence of returns, which could be a whole nother topic we can talk about. But there's so much worry around retirees that they end up like hoarding their money and like taking drips out of the faucet, right? They don't want to turn that thing on and enjoy it because of all those things, all those concerns. So that's why people are in that situation. They never really did a plan in the beginning to get there, to figure out the optimal way to retire.
I like the retirement experts like Tom Hegna, who says, you need You need your paychecks in the mail every month to take care of all those fixed expenses, like the place you live, the food you eat, and the things you like to, to do at home.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
then you also want the play checks to show up every month too, so you can have the lifestyle that you thought about and dreamed about with your spouse or whomever for the longest time. You don't want to have to put a muzzle on that, and honestly, people in the first 2 to 3 years of retirement spend on average twice or 1.5 to 2 times the amount of money that they plan to in the future, which means they're taking the trips that they waited to take.
Yeah.
They're buying the RV or the boat that they really wanted. They're buying their grandkids stuff because now they're like, I got all this extra free time. You went from working 40 hours a week to having all of your time to yourself.
Yeah. Really good point. There's one thing we didn't mention too is inflation, right?
Yeah,
It's a
big one.
huge one that, the strategy to spend less becomes a reality then because they're like, my mother-in-law, she'll drive, you know, far, far away to spend less money on gas, right? Well, I'm like, you kind of defeated the purpose, right? But they really want to save that money because of the income concerns.
Would you want a fixed income for life or would you want a variable income? I think that's the question that we'll end with right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Good point.
The next one kind of goes in line with this. Medicare will cover my healthcare needs in retirement.
Okay. Well, yeah, some of it.
Some, is that right?
Yeah, so it's good that you have it. It's a good program to be part of. And when you qualify, that takes a big relief off of, health insurance premiums and things like that. There's some experts out there in Medicare. You want to maximize all those benefits. I think where it kind of is mistaken is that Medicare is going to pay for if I really get sick and need constant care, right? Like what if I experience some sort of dementia and I need somebody 24/7? Medicare is not going to help there. And that's where you need long-term care. And that's where it's really sad. We want the best for our spouse. We want the best for our parents. But we're forced into poverty-like situations so that we can qualify for other government programs like Medicaid, which is not great, right? So long-term care becomes a major issue in retirement. So I think it's a major, it's an upsetting thing to figure out is that when you're retired and you're living off that fixed income and you don't have enough money, and then all of a sudden an illness comes into play and Medicare doesn't step up to the plate like you thought it would.
There's so many different parts of Medicare. I mean, I think it was A through all the way through N, maybe something like that. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of them, and everybody typically has A, B, and D. But if you're making too much money in retirement, that can vastly affect the amount of premium that you pay on a monthly basis for Medicare.
It's true.
And if you're making too little of money, then your lifestyle is not great, but you probably won't pay that much for Medicare. So that the point is having a healthy balance of the amount of taxable income you're taking in that won't affect the Medicare premiums that you pay. That's good planning right there. So don't go at it alone. Just talk with somebody and say, hey, can you help me with my Medicare coverages? Can you help me with my payments that I'm paying? Can you save me some money on these things? Am I making the right amount of income? There's a lot of different steps. So just talking with somebody to help make you feel more confident about where you're going to be going is worth it.
And knowing what it doesn't cover too, I think, Medicare is not just like something you can slap on your healthcare costs, right? And be like, oh, okay, everything's going to be fine. There are things it doesn't pay for, and that they can be really expensive.
Like, did you think a financial advisor would talk to somebody about their Medicare premiums? Probably not. Right. So this is one of the things that we can help cover. And it's, not just about investments. There's a lot more to it. That's a great topic, man. I think that'll resonate with a lot of people close to retirement. Let's move on to the next one, which is number 10. We're getting towards the end here.
Okay.
Bad things don't happen to good people. I like to call this an invincibility complex. People, things that's not going to happen to me type of thing. So what is a term for that, Ben?
We deal with this all the time. It's actually, there's a technical term for it, a medical term for it. It's called the optimism bias.
Okay. What's that?
Right. So like optimism bias is like when it's really a self-defense mechanism. It's like, okay, well, Joe and Jane bought life insurance. That's great, but that's not going to happen to me. Right. Or we get that a lot with like things like disability. That's not going to happen to me. So any sort of protection aspects of planning that we do, it's another human behavior issue. We're flawed human beings. We get it. Like I'm a flawed human being too. So You need somebody that's going to talk you out of those biases and help you do the right thing. We get a lot, Stephen, I know I do. I get a lot of optimism bias when it comes to talking about protection items. So, hey, you should have homeowners insurance, you should have auto insurance, you should have liability in there, you should have umbrella, you should have life insurance, disability insurance, legal documents, all those things that we do in protection. A lot of people are like, well, that ain't gonna happen to me, right? That's not gonna happen to me. So it's our job to go, yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen to you, but what if it does? Like, how are you gonna adapt if it does happen to you? So it's really great to have an advisor in your corner to sort of talk you through that, because we've seen the other side of that. It's a really sad situation. You see a lot of GoFundMe funerals and they're horrible, right? It's horrible when you see those sort of things that happen that you could have fixed.
As an example of that recently, the guy who played the crackhead on the movie Friday, remember that funny guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
He died last year and left his family with nothing. And so his spouse was on GoFundMe trying to raise money for his funeral. Like a celebrity like that. I
Yeah.
mean, and you hear about intestate people when they die, like Prince and all these folks that didn't have wills, but people just think, oh, I'll take care of it later, or that's just it's not going to happen to me. So you gotta, while you're thinking about it, it's better to have that stuff in place and not need it than not have it at all, and your family go through agonizing trauma every single day when they have to go to look at probate or go talk to somebody about how to fix this issue. Like, just take care of it, man. Be a good family person and go do it.
Yeah. And people feel better when they do. Every time, all the time. And I think that we should also point out too, just because you check a box and say, well, I got some life insurance. Okay, well, when's the last time you looked at that? Right? Is it enough? Just because you have it doesn't mean it's good, right?
True.
So I think it's important to take a look at, with an advisor, say, is this enough? Is this the right kind? Do I have all the bells and whistles that I need that are really, really important? So just because you do it doesn't mean it's good. You really need to make sure that you're looking at it comprehensively. I think if we just say, think about your worst day, are you prepared for that? Your absolute worst day. I mean, nobody's prepared for that. So the optimism bias, or whatever you want to call it, invincibility, it's thriving. It's everywhere. And I think I'm guilty of it too in a lot of different factors. So it's good to have, people to keep you accountable.
Good point. Well, moving on to the last one here, I think we've given a lot of great information. The last one here is investment rates of return will be my measure of success. Whether that's retirement accounts or non-qualified stock accounts you're investing in, playing with, like those investment rates of return are what people focus on. They put the blinders on. So
Yeah.
why is this a myth?
Well, I would agree. Like, more money's better. If we're talking about piles of money, the bigger pile is better, right? Usually. But I'll give you an example. If we go to that retirement example we've been using, if you had two twin brothers and they're pulling money off of an account, and one's pulling it off a classic retirement account, and one's pulling it off of a non-qualified, non-retirement account, the non-qualified account's going to be better, right? Even though you had identical rates of return along the way, because of the way the account is structured and the way the account gets taxed. It's just going to be a better retirement in a non-qualified account. So I know that we could probably spend a lot of time on that. We don't have any illustrations to show that. We know the math. We know the math behind it. So yes, rate of return is great, but when you really look at the type of account that you're in, that can dramatically impact your overall net rate of return.
I mean, so just a quick disclaimer on that: the non-qualified money, if you've been building with the same deposits every year into it, it's going to have significantly less money in it because of the tax deferral wasn't present in the non-qualified account, but it was present in the qualified. But if you're paying, 35 to 40% income tax on the money you pull from the qualified account, and you're only paying capital gains, which is significantly less tax on the non-qualified money, yes, you will be in a better situation.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that you get your basis, what you invested, you get back tax-free.
Yeah.
Right? It's amazing, right? There's no basis in a classic retirement plan. Every dollar is subject to tax, and that scares a lot of people. It would scare me. So I think it's back to what we said before with different tools and different tools in my toolbox. I think you need a bunch of different tools, and you need to have, we call it asset allocation. Sometimes that's an investment term, but we also like to use the term asset location. What type of account are your assets in? Because that's going to dramatically impact how it meets your needs, whether it's a wedding that you want to pay for, college funding, or retirement income.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We had a great conversation on this. And listeners, if any of these points made you think, or if you have questions about certain things, Ben and I are more than happy to chat with you. We work for the same firm, Consolidated Planning. I have my Husky Financial brand as well, but we work cases together. We listen, we understand. We have no judgment on this end. We just want to be present to help and be there for you. So if you have any questions and you want to talk with us, message us on huskyfinancial.com, or you can find Ben Decker on cplanning.com. Thanks for your time.